I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives in the 8th District of Ohio. That's Speaker Boehner's district, if you didn't know already. Now, Speaker Boehner and Representative Ellison have a lot more in common than they would like to tell you about. Speaker Boehner continuously votes for continuing resolutions that fund the abortion giant Planned Parenthood. Keith Ellison does the same. The fruits of Planned Parenthood funding is dead babies. Now, Representative Boehner and Ellison also continuously fund unconstitutional entitlements. They're one and the same. They're the establishment. Now, I'm running in the Republican primary against Boehner, and the person I'm introducing, Gary Boisclair, is running as a DFLer against Keith Ellison. Now, I'm here to support Gary, a Republican supporting a Democrat, and we have a lot in common, actually, just like Keith Ellison and John Boehner have in common, a Democrat and Republican. I stand for principle over party. That means that no matter what the party line is, even if it's funding Planned Parenthood or unconstitutional entitlements, I am not a party guy, I'm a principle guy, and that's exactly what Gary Boisclair is. Now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce a man of integrity, a man of principle, Gary Boisclair.
Thank you, David. Thank you. This is a great time to not have a voice. I made the mistake of going to the Vikings game yesterday. I've got family near me here and friends. Grew up in northeast Minneapolis, right around here. Also grew up out in Buffalo, Minnesota, fishing, water skiing. I've spent the better part of 40 years in Minnesota. I intend to beat Representative Keith Ellison in the bid for the 5th Congressional District in Minnesota. The things I'm about to say might make a few people feel just a little bit uncomfortable, but it reminds me of some uncomfortable words that Mr. Hubert Humphrey said back in 1948. His big words bringing up civil rights. He was talking about progress. He must have used the word 10 times in that speech, how we need progress in morality, and especially, he said, for the minorities. It's a funny thing that we've got a representative right now in the DFL who says that he's fighting for minorities. Mr. Ellison, you are fighting against the minorities. And how are you doing that, Mr. Representative? You're supporting Planned Parenthood with so many votes, so many of your votes. And guess what? Planned Parenthood loves Keith Ellison. Planned Parenthood kills about 1,000 babies a day. Today, they've got those murders scheduled. It's happening right now. Abortion is murder. Tell me, Representative Ellison, is legalized murder progress? Is that the progress that Mr. Humphrey talked about for the minorities? I don't think so. I want you to go, please, DFLers, see my prototype TV ads that I will be showing. Go to www.garyinthehouse.com. Minneapolis and St. Paul will see just how ugly Ellison's progress is. I intend to show the graphic images of the victims of abortion. The nation will see what Ellison's progress really looks like. If Mr. Humphrey was here today, he would fight against Ellison. Humphrey and Ellison have two completely different ideas of what progress is. Ellison thinks that progress is the murder of babies. I've got a problem with that. DFL, it's time to choose. Murder, the slaughter of babies with Ellison, or life with me? DFL, it's also time for you to choose when it comes to liberty or socialism. Yes, you get to choose between those two things now, since I'll be running in the primary against Mr. Ellison. Ellison is in lockstep with our dear President Obama and all of his socialist agenda. All of those entitlements that we take for granted, that we just expect are a part of normal life. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those need to be phased out. Currently, Keith Ellison is helping us to be enslaved to debt for years and years to come, enslaving our kids to crushing debt, runaway inflation. He's forcing us to give. Does that sound like compassion? Mr. Ellison likes to talk about compassion. Hey, when you force me to pay for somebody else for their education, for their retirement, for their health, whatever it is, that's not compassion. Mr. Ellison, I thought you were smart. I thought you were intelligent. DFLers, lastly, it's time for you to choose. You get to choose between freedom of speech and religion with me, or Sharia law with Mr. Ellison. Yes, that's the choice that stands before you. Mr. Ellison, as you well know, took the oath of office to uphold the Constitution with his hand, excuse me, on a Quran. Inside the Quran, there are many places where it speaks of violence against people that are infidels, blasphemers. Who are these wicked people? They're Jews and Christians, and they're named as such in the Quran. The Quran says that the opposite hands and feet of those Christians ought to be cut off and that they ought to be crucified and killed. Is that a religion of peace? The Quran forms a part of Sharia law. It is an integral part of Sharia law, which is the code of ethics which controls every aspect of a Muslim's life. On these three issues, DFLers, you have to choose between life or murder, between liberty or socialism, between freedom of religion and speech or Sharia law. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions you might have.
Why are you coming out today and doing this?
Today, it's a time to start up. The primary season is going to get going underway, going to get funding together so that we can show the TV ads across to the whole metro area. This must begin now.
You have a lot of funding right now for this?
The funding will be coming. It has not arrived yet, but I've got confidence. I've got friends around the nation. Thank you. Live in a couple places. I live in Minnesota when I come to visit often, and I also live out near DC. I spend most of my time out there, but I don't know if I spend as much time out there as Representative Ellison does away from Minnesota. But I am out in the DC area, up on Capitol Hill. I see him walking on the sidewalks. I've spent the better part of 40 years in Minnesota. Thank you very much. I think my chances are very good, and I'll tell you why. In my travels around the nation, I am meeting Democrats, lifelong Democrats, who take me aside and say, "Psst, don't tell anybody else, but I'm really pro-life." I hear these things from people. I know that there are many, I'll say even Catholics out there too, that have been lifelong Democrats, DFLers here in Minnesota. Same thing. They're looking for someone that they can rally behind. They don't find a leader in Ellison. They've got a chance with me. The way the question is framed, I wouldn't take it quite that way. I have a problem with a book that speaks about my crucifixion and my death because of my beliefs as a Christian. Okay? We need to be very clear. I am not talking about attacking a person. I'm talking about reading some words in a book. The Quran is not a book of peace. Thank you very much.